Thank you, Vamekh, for joining us in Scouted by GreyB. My name is Shabaz, and I think since we've already briefed on like the context of Scouted, I'd like to dive right away, which was like first question that came to my mind as soon as I read about your profile and Elvin. Your previous experiences in medical science, and you were a doctor, and then I'm sure you get asked this question a lot. So, but I'm still going to repeat it same. So how this transition happened, coming from medical industry and then directly jumping into this sci-fi technology entrepreneurship.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a logical story if you follow the steps. Yes, I did study medicine. I did practice medicine, and mostly in pediatrics. But on the other hand, I used to teach medicine in Central Medical Universities in Georgia. My major subject, which I used to teach, was anatomy. And even since being in med school, I knew that the practical medicine was less interesting for me rather than the scientific part of it. And while teaching anatomy, I basically realized that the human body is just a very high-tech robot.
Hmm.
And I got into understanding mechanical engineering part of it, and I got super excited about it. So just because the medicine has changed a lot in 20th century and in the 21st century as well, I did not enjoy being there anymore due to different circumstances, which I'm not going to discuss here. So I was already quite interested about physics and chemistry, and had some time to like relearn a lot while working in medicine. And I was very excited about the whole Mars mission of the humanity.
Hmm.
And I saw that the biggest problem for the Mars mission is it's still there. It's still the biggest problem. It was the spacesuits, because what NASA uses today to walk out into the open space, it's very old technology, like 1960s technology. It doesn't even have a chip in it. And then I did the research if somebody was actually trying to update it to the current technological level, and I found several companies, and mostly NASA, but they have been doing this for decades with billions of funding, and at some point they just said that we can't do it, so we're going to try to outsource it. It's the hardest technological job, one of the hardest things to
It's
do,
literally
because
rocket science, right?
it's rocket science is not that hard, to be honest. But a spacesuit basically is the whole rocket shrunk into the human size
Hmm.
and then made very movable. So it's super hard to do.
Hmm.
And as crazy as it sounds, I decided to actually try and build a spacesuit, which is totally crazy. It doesn't make any sense, I know. But I believed that the connection between the medicine and engineering was the major, some kind of big advantage which I had as a being, because the whole idea or the purpose of the spacesuit is to protect the human body. And if you understand the human body very well, I thought that building something that to protect it would be quite like logical to go for. So I started Elven in 2018 with the goal to build the next generation spacesuit. That was our first pitch. That's how we raised money in the beginning. But to be able to build a spacesuit, you need multiple different technologies to be upgraded, like for 50 years gap in technology. And I decided to go for the easiest one because there was not a lot of money and there were like several people in the team. And that thing was the like temperature transfer blocking material or layer of the suit, so you just don't freeze in space. But if you're using something like that, which every spacesuit uses, then your own heat will cook you inside. So you need something to cool you down, and they always associate it with the cooling system. So at Elben, we're trying to build the basically the suit out of some materials that will completely block the heat transfer to the outside, and also build a cooling system in it. And at some point, we realized that if we do that, we have a fully functional firefighter suit,
Hmm.
even without any other technologies. It's a fully functional high-tech firefighter suit which doesn't exist. So we were like, okay, let's make a first product, because the spacesuit is a very long game.
Hmm.
So let's make a first product which will be a firefighter suit with the cooling system in it. And we were working on two technologies. The cooling system is tech on its own, and the materials which will help us to be flexible but also very resistant to heat transfer. And we built both, and when we patented both. Um, and the material I'm holding in my hand now, it's a super flexible thing. It's the suit version is even more flexible. This is the battery version now.
Okay.
But the way this thing works is basically you can put a rocket engine on this side and hold it in your hand for hours. And the fire will never penetrate, and the heat moves extremely slowly to the other side. Okay, so after an hour, there's going to be a gain of 20 degrees on this side when you have 2000 degrees on this side.
Oh,
So um, and we came by these accidentally when basically testing multiple different new materials around the globe. We just asked a bunch of companies to give us samples, and then we just did different combos and we're testing in different ways. And this was never designed to be fire resistant or even fireproof. This was just for the temperature transfer. But one of the Elven guys, Sandro, who's the chief scientist at Elven, he likes to burn stuff. And he was like, let's burn this. And then we did burn it with a very small temperature, and nothing happened. So we slowly increased temperatures and went to a totally crazy high temperatures, which is like 2000 degrees right now, Celsius. And at that point, yeah, we were like, let's build a firefighter suit. And that's how we started as a first product. We were building a firefighter suit. We actually built it. We tested it. It was totally amazing, like 10 times better than anything on the market. We just couldn't sell it because it turned out that the firefighter suit market is a very complicated market. And meanwhile, we found the new application, so moved to the electric vehicles and batteries from there.
that's really crazy story, and it's really
Yep.
amazing. I enjoyed hearing every
A
part
lot
of
of
it.
a lot of pivots, but I think those pivots have been good.
No, now that you explain it, it makes perfect sense how each step pushed you towards the next thing. And
Hmm.
so I just still want to ask, so your goal is still building the spacesuit, but you're making everything that comes along the way, that new things you keep inventing,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
That's great. That's, I
Just
think it.
basically, there's a lot of different technologies, and when you like update one of them till the today's level, you can use it to make amazing products already. So we were like, the business model was kind of the same as what SpaceX was doing, because they were trying to get the rocket to Mars, but before that happens, they were trying to sell those same rockets on Earth so they could make money to keep on the research and development.
Yeah,
Something kind of the same.
it makes perfect sense, right? To make a very efficient EV, you need a bit good battery, a good tires, and a good motor, right? So I think
Yeah.
everything comes along the way. So for the sake of this call, actually, and I'm a very curious person by nature, so I obviously have a lot of questions, but we don't have that much time, so I'll try to focus only on the
Okay.
basically the automotive market that currently
Hmm.
Elven Tech is targeting. Uh, so I wanted to ask, basically, can you take me through like how this new product, fireproof composite material that you made, how it works for EV batteries? And I'm, as far as I know, I think you're specifically targeting lithium-ion based batteries.
Yes.
So yes, please take me through it and tell me a little bit about how this tech work for EV batteries.
Well, the problem is that lithium batteries are the major source of energy for EV transportation. Like that, I don't mean only cars, like scooters, bikes, aircraft, boats, anything that is electric. It needs lithium batteries in it, and the lithium batteries are great for what they do. But they have an like inherent chemical problem, which is spontaneous, catching fire spontaneously. And that fire is a specific because it's unextinguishable by our current technology. So the only thing you can do is just let it burn and burn out. But when it burns, it's so bad that it can burn everything around it.
Hmm.
So we were like, maybe we can put our material around it before it gets into the car, like make a car part, basically, a box around the battery. And when the battery catches fire, maybe we will give like 15, 20 minutes to people just to leave the car. That was the idea in the beginning. So, but since we've been testing it, starting it from the scooter batteries, like very small, increase to the bike, then getting to now testing bus batteries already. Surprisingly, the way it works is that it will never let the fire come out. It's not like 15 or 20 minutes. It's never. and that changes the whole user experience of EV drivers, because you can come out of the car and run away, yes,
Mm.
but your car will just not burn. The battery will burn inside, obviously, but after it's done, after 24 hours, like 48 hours, whatever it takes to burn down the whole thing, you just replace the battery in the car, well, wash the car as well, and you're good to go. Okay, and if it's parked in your garage, your house is not gonna burn.
Yeah.
If it's in the boat, which transport, like not boat, but a huge ship,
Ship.
which transfers thousands of cars, it's not gonna burn any of the other cars or the ship itself, because we've seen like three huge ships go down in and sink because of the EV fires, causing like billions of damage in a day. So that's the way it works now. And but while we were talking with these EV companies to try and sell them the product, they were like, okay, this is good, but the automotive market is a slow market. So even if we sign a contract today, your product will be in our cars in 5 years. And then they said, but we have an ongoing problem right now, like actually yesterday.
Mm.
And could you also solve that? Which is the same batteries. It turns out that the same batteries are shipped around the world, like from factory to storage and then from storage to the automaker in a very unsafe way. And they're stored in a very unsafe way. And that's a big problem for these companies. And our technical job is way easier because now we have to fireproof a huge container, which is way easier than fireproofing a battery inside the car where there's almost no space.
Mm.
And you have to be like super meticulous with engineering. Here is just a big box that you need to put a carpet inside, basically. And so now we have two products and two product lines ongoing. Um, the batteries inside cars or other transportation, as well as the transportation and storage containers of these batteries. And we don't build the containers yet or the batteries itself. We just build the product around the battery or product inside the container, which already exists.
This is great, and I think this is a much simpler solution. And you're absolutely right. Introducing a new tech in automotive sector is really challenging. That's why there's very less startups in this space compared to food
Mhm.
tech or cosmetic or any other kind of consumer driven industries. So so now that you mentioned that you have two products and one is much easier, and basically you just have to make the containers.
And time to market is like tomorrow. We don't have to wait for anything. We already have like contracts signed and
Hmm.
are working with like leading companies in the world, which I can't name now, but leading companies in the world. Yeah.
Okay. So how easy it is for for a, let's say, a transportation company to adopt Elven Technologies material in their already existing shipping lines? And so is it easy? Is it complicated? Or like, can you tell me a little bit about it?
For the transportation like solution, I mean the containers, it's not hard because we can easily design any shape. So now this is flat, but we can do any three-dimensional shape because it's flexible and moldable. And we just then just manufacture a bunch of it and ship to these guys, and they just put it inside, and it's done. It's way easier than put it inside the car because in the car you need to repeat the shape of the battery, and no battery is like has like regular simple shape. It's always like this. So and there's no like weight limitation. There's no thickness limitation in the containers. It's way easier to do for these companies. That's why we've been trying to convince the EV makers to put this in their cars for 2 years, and it's not going great because it's hard to do. But as soon as we started talking about the containers, we don't need to convince anyone. They go like, "Oh yeah, yeah, well, that makes sense. Let's do it." And what we like about this product is that it gets us inside these companies, like working with the engineers closely, and then it's way easier to jump from that product to the car product while you're already working with the company and you're an official supplier and so on and so on, rather than just trying to break down the doors from the outside with
Yeah, it,
with
it,
one
it
product.
gives you a good runway to reach the other market, right?
Yes, and it gives you runway, which is not as big as it would be in the EV industry, because EV industry is basically the best market we can go for. in terms of size, but the runway is important to sustain the company, so and not be only relying on the investments.
Okay, makes sense. So, have you faced any kind of similar challenge from transportation or these container or basically shipping companies as well? Do they also come up to you, with doubts that maybe, oh man, this is going to increase our shipping cost because of extra weight or anything like that?
Not that much, to be honest. Actually, these guys are already using some containers. They're mostly wood. Sometimes they're plastic or steel. Wood is not reusable, so they need to buy a container every time they need to ship, and that's very uncomfortable, and it burns like very easy, obviously. So it's not safe at all. Um, the plastic is not that bad, but it also has no fire protection, but it's lightweight and it's reusable. And the metal or steel is like extremely heavy. So now our job is to, and metal is extremely heavy because it has very thick walls to protect from fire, so it just doesn't melt through. Um, it's just raw force basically. But what we're trying to do with this is like make the metals way thinner. So we're decreasing the weight of the total container by adding this because you don't need to have as thick containers anymore. Same with the plastic. When wood, I don't think that we're gonna do fireproofing wood because it doesn't make any sense because it's not reusable, and this is reusable. So now what orders we have is basically fireproofing metal containers while making them lighter in weight, and also fireproofing the plastic containers. But what we're thinking of doing in the future, because we saw this weight problem, is to build our own container, which will be a new revolutionary shipping and storage container, both like two in one, which will be made of this, and also a special structural composite outside, which will give it the skeleton, let's say, because this cannot hold shape, which will be super lightweight because it's just very new composites. In that case, yes, price becomes an issue, and we're working day and night to reduce the prices to the like logical levels in which the companies will be able to buy it, and it will be like deliver actual value to them. Reusability is very important because if you can reuse it 20 times, it drastically reduces the cost in long term.
Okay. And you mentioned two things, which again makes me very curious about, of course, the sustainability side of things, the reusability, which is very important. And
Mhm.
I think that is the preference why a lot of shipping companies or transportation companies use metal containers, because they have like almost
Yes.
indefinite life, right? Unless they fall into
Hmm.
the ocean. Uh,
Yeah.
so so what's the basically life? I would say basically how long can this material, the Elven Technologies material, can last?
To be honest, we don't really know. Our problem is that we have been trying to destroy this thing, and it's really hard to do. Like in terms of even fire, we say that we can do 2,000 degrees for 1 hour. But the reason we say that is because we did like 2,000-degree test for 1 hour and nothing happened. But then that's our limitation. We cannot do it for 5 hours, or we cannot do higher than 2,000 degrees. So we are not really sure if this thing can do 3,000 degrees or longer than an hour. And it's the same with the like longitude of life, because um, when we started in 2018, we actually took several samples and just threw it outside in our yard, and they've been there like for 5 years. And we sometimes try to like take it back and burn, and it still works the same way. And it's like under sun, under like rain and snow, like it's just outside
All
in the
the
yard.
elements, yeah.
Um, and so I don't know. For 5 years, it definitely works perfectly. Maybe something special happens at year six, but the time just hasn't passed to be sure.
Okay, and that again is very interesting, and I totally understand. Uh, Even a 5-year promise is will be better, because if you can guarantee a fireproof 5 year 5-year warranty on an EV car, I think that's going to be very impressive for uh,
No,
many.
this thing is like waterproof, dustproof. The only thing that we know it's not proof is like ionizing radiation, X-rays and high, because we tried X-rays on it and we can see through, so it means that it lets it pass. but it's everything else proof. Well, not bullets. Even like with a knife and slice and punch through, it has like very high protection. You can punch through it, but it takes a lot of force. It's hard to get damaged by anything because the sun has to damage it, or UV light has to damage it, or it has to physically be damaged to lose the functionality. But it's really hard to damage this thing
I guess then,
unless you really try.
yeah, I guess once you figure out how to prevent ionizing radiation out of it, then you are almost halfway to your spacesuit dream, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That's the next step, I guess.
Okay. So now, Womek, I like to dive into a little bit about the manufacturing and scalability of the product,
Hmm.
because I believe that is going to be like one of the biggest factor if
Yes.
automakers have to adopt this solution, or any
Yeah,
automaker is
absolutely.
considered, right? So can you tell me a little bit like how scalable is the manufacturing of this material? You did say that you just slammed a lot of materials together until you found this perfect
Hmm.
material, and now you've dived into the manufacturing of this process of this material. So can you tell me a little bit about the scalability?
Yep. Yeah. Well, there are two major sites in scalability. The first one is do we have the supply of materials for that? We've been talking like this last year as we started growing. We talked with every possible supplier around the globe. Got very nice pricing that already helps us decrease the price of the final composite. And yes, like these companies already supply EVs or other large companies. So there's plenty of these materials around the globe to, to get our hands on. And we're actually starting partnership with the suppliers so they know that we're opening new markets for them. And on the other hand, there's manufacturing of the composite if you have all the raw materials you need. Elven is not planning to build huge manufacturing plants ourselves, at least for now, because we're still a startup. We're very lean. We have like 6 people in the team. So we're working with the manufacturing partners to deliver our orders, and that way we're just spread work amongst different companies, making it easier and increases the chances basically of success. When we grow up and become a big company, probably we're gonna get into the manufacturing ourselves, but that's step number 5, and we're at step number 2 right now. So yeah, that's basically how it works. But we do have the manufacturing company like partners who already do this for us. But on the other hand, where we talk with the large companies, we also do licensing for them
Hmm.
in EV industry as well as other industries, which especially we don't specialize in, because people want to use this in construction, in
Hmm.
boat building, in defense, in different industries, which we don't know. So we just find nice companies who operate in those industries who want to use this to solve their specific problems, and we just license our technology to them, and they do their own thing. They just
Hmm.
pay the royalty, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, thanks for telling this. Actually, I wanted to know about this as well, because
Hmm.
this material being fireproof, weatherproof, and flexible opens up so many opportunities to be applied into a lot of different industries. And
Yep.
so I was just about to ask, what other industries are you catering to? And thanks for taking me through. So when you say licensing, so you're referring to licensing a patented patents and basically all the intellectual properties that you're covering.
Yeah.
So is it okay if I say that licensing is also one of the strategy through which basically Elvin wants to grow, is like it is generating a revenue stream for you?
Yes. Yes. Like we have like two business models ongoing. So we try to be as comfortable for the customers as possible. They can ask us to totally design the product and test the product for them.
Hmm.
They can ask us to help them design it with their own team or and help with the testing, or they can ask us to just deliver the samples or the rolls and they do the rest of the work. Whatever they prefer is the way we work, and that's the same way in delivery. They can ask us to manufacture and just deliver through direct sales, or do the licensing. So
Okay.
the point is, because we're a lean team, now for the last 6 months, we have a lot of orders and we have to put companies on back order. And when we, meaning like designing products and doing the R&D, and if we licensing out, it's not our work anymore. So we don't have to put that company on the back order anymore. We just send the materials and their engineers do the job.
Mm.
So it's better for us to license now because it generates revenue with us without occupying our engineers to do the work. Okay, but now we realize that we need to grow. We need to grow the engineering team at least 3 times to be able to do 4 to 5 products in parallel. Because now we can do maximum 2 in parallel,
Mm.
which is not enough for the market already.
Okay, makes sense. So, and talking about growth, so you mentioned you have two products primarily currently. So,
Mhm.
what are other products, markets or products in which Elven Technology is planning to expand?
Right now, we are not planning to expand ourselves, like pursue it completely as Elven, but with partners, we're already talking with electric motorcycle companies who want to do it in their batteries, and we're gonna find a way to do it, like if it's fully our work or half half, or it's just their work. We're talking with the industrial insulation companies who do pipe insulations, which is not our job, but they want to license it out.
Mm.
We're talking with aerospace companies, and we actually shipped several products to the aerospace companies, and they just finished testing it. They loved it, and they're giving us a bigger order now. So, and also defense is being interested lately, especially what's going on around the world.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, we're happy to help and work with these companies to bring these things to market, but we also want to concentrate on something that we know and have been doing for some time. So that's why we basically say that mostly we concentrate on batteries and battery protection, and it can be inside the car, outside the car. When it's the battery, you know the batteries well and how to protect the batteries very well. And on the other hand, if anybody else wants to use this in different industries, we're happy to help in design and testing, but we prefer to just license it out,
Yeah,
right?
it makes
But
perfect sense.
we're already talking with maritime, aerospace, construction. Um, we have use cases in aerospace and construction already, as well as small scooters, and now we're switching to the motorcycles, as well as municipal. Like New York has a huge problem of burning like mini scooters,
Mm.
electric scooters in the houses because people park it in their house, and we've seen like several full buildings basically collapsing or burning down because of the one small scooter.
Mm.
So now we're even discussing with the municipalities to include some kind of small protective measures, or even like scooter bags in people's housings or outside the house, so you can store your scooter in there, making sure that if it accidentally catches fire, it doesn't burn the half of the block.
Okay. Yep. I think regulatory and policies, government policies around fire safety that can also give you a little push, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
The policies are getting stricter and stricter. The batteries are getting regulated right now.
mm,
So I think we're just a bit forward to time, and that's great because when the regulations hit, we will be ready with the products already. And it's going to be so much easier to convince the companies to start implementing this rather than other solutions that will need years to comply with those regulations.
yes, absolutely, Vamekh. So I'll jump back to EV, and just a few questions left, and
Hmm.
won't take a lot of time. Uh,
Yeah, please.
so, in case of EVs, what
Hmm.
the objection that you faced over up until now in adoption of Elven material. So, do you see these things change in not in 5 years, but maybe in 1 year because of regulations, or because what do you think is what can you say to these manufacturers that will push them to adopt this material regardless of maybe there's a cost involved, maybe it will increase the cost, maybe it will increase the weight of the car, but basically what's the benefit for them to adopt, which can justify the ROI?
Yes, regulations will be the final blow, let's say this way. But now what we're trying to do is to find additional values that we deliver rather than just fire safety. So it's more convincing and also saving money for these companies. And what we have found so far is that, like, if you imagine, the battery enclosure is what we call it as a product which goes in the car. The battery enclosure's major job is to stop the fire as the fire shield, but it's like one-time job. It just happens once, and it has to do it once, and it might not happen to you ever in your life. Okay, and as a customer, you're paying, let's say, $1,000 for additional like fire protection, might not be very logical for you because it might not happen to you ever. But we found out that because we're a strong insulator, we can prevent batteries uh, cooling down, extremely cooling down in winter, which causes the loss of charge about 30%
Mm.
if it goes lower than zero, like freezing temperature of water. And that creates a huge range anxiety in EV owners who live in cold environments. And EV companies are losing that market, and we can totally remove that problem. Okay, now that's an everyday value already, not a one-time life-saving value, but an everyday value. And when our calculations, if you lose 30% charge every night in winter, you need to recharge it, and you're paying more money for electricity.
Mm.
And if you do the calculations, it's about $1,000 in the calculating US and US charging prices. It's about $1,000 per month, per year, sorry. And now it justifies $1,000 enclosure, which will save you $1,000 per year, and that's a big thing. And some of the EV companies that we've been talking to are even more happy with this solution or this value rather than the fire protecting value. Okay,
Yeah.
so this thing became more leading problem solving thing than a fire. And the third thing that we found out, which one of the companies actually helped us to do, it never came to our mind, was that they said that we're putting a special layer on top of our battery because our battery makes weird sounds and people don't like when they hear it in the cabin. So we put the special thing that reduces the sound transfer. And they said, if your thing can do the same thing, we would just throw away that layer, save money on that.
Mm.
And that's going to be a big step forward to implement your solution because now we're saving money
Yeah.
and a bit of weight. And we did our own internal tests on the sound and we know it works. But like we need to confirm it now with the third party labs, obviously, because people don't trust internal tests.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Yeah, like I can say anything I want. The samples are already out, and probably we should have the results in next 2 months. And when that's done, we have a three-in-one solution, something that gives you two values, everyday values,
Mm.
saving you money, saving you range, which is a big thing when you wake up in the morning and you need to drive long distances, especially
Mm.
in US. As well as making sure that if your EV ever accidentally catches fire, everything around you, including you, will be completely protected. So that's our like go-to strategy now to find additional values, which sometimes accidentally turn out to be even more important for these companies than the values that we're actually offering right now,
Yes, yes. What you
and then
said
just
about
combine them and deliver them like, together as a bundle.
absolutely. I think what you said about, instead of once in a lifetime value, if you are able to
Hmm.
showcase the daily value and daily ROI on this material, I think that's a brilliant idea. Um, and I'm very happy to hear about this material. This sounds like a really sci-fi material already. So thanks for taking me through it.
Shabazz, have you seen any videos of like demo videos on our YouTube?
Yes,
We've
yes,
been
I saw a
burning
few.
people inside this.
I saw a few specifically the torch one in which you were trying to
Okay,
burn the material. Yeah, so it was.
okay.
I also saw similar videos when I was doing the research that I think they prepared a new material that is also fireproof, but for heat shields
Hmm.
for rockets when they re-enter the atmosphere. Right. So
Hmm.
at that time, also, and this is something that I saw a long ago because it was very famous. I think you might have also seen this. It was a small cube. They pull it out
Oh
of
yeah,
the furnace
of
and
course.
then they just pick it with hand, and it's cool, right? So when I read about your solution, I immediately thought of that even rockets and heat shields. And that's why I keep repeating the sci-fi side of this, because I'm a huge sci-fi fan. I watch a lot of series, and
Yeah,
I
same here.
totally see. That's good. So
Yeah, that's a very nice material. It just absorbs huge amounts of heat,
Hmm.
but it does absorb and then needs very long time to let it go.
Hmm.
It has a capacity, maximum capacity. It's basically a heat battery, but it can reach the maximum capacity. I think it will work nicely, very nicely on the heat shields. I'm
Hmm.
not sure what the weight is because we've been talking about using this thing as a heat shield with the rocket companies, including SpaceX. The one of the major values that we're trying to sneak in rather than just the fire protection is that this is super light in weight.
Hmm.
So when you're launching a rocket which has 10,000 tiles on it
Yeah.
for heat shielding, one of the biggest prices or the cost of the rocket launch is the fuel which you need for to lift the weight.
Yeah.
So if you decrease the weight of the heat shield, that automatically decreases the price of every launch
Hmm.
and the amount of fuel you need. So that's how we're trying to get into the heat shield business
Yes,
because
yes.
it's
I
super
think
light.
weight is like one of the biggest factor in rocket launcher, right? Even just one
Yeah.
kg of weight increases the cost immensely. So, and I'm absolutely, I
If you
won't be
ever
the
played KSP, which is an amazing game
same.
or rocket simulator, basically,
I
Kerbal
have
Space
used to
Program.
play it many years ago. Yeah, I blasted
Yeah,
a lot of
that's
rockets.
one of the first things that you learn that weight is the most important thing.
Yeah. Uh, okay, Vamekh, so with that, just one question, and which is something again I ask a lot of founders. I've talked to so many of them now, and I just try to see the pattern. And your case
Hmm.
is very interesting for me because you come from a very different background. And as I asked in my first question, this transition is already very important, interesting in itself. Coming from a medical background and jumping. Now that you've explained it, it makes perfect sense. But I want to ask, you have developed a lot of technologies, not just this, but I was reading one of your interview and that mentioned that you were also planning to make an exoskeleton once,
Hmm.
right? So, and I see that you are an inventor by heart and you invent a lot of things. So during all of this time and now running a company and gathering funds and a company that is working on such a interesting material, did you ever think about maybe this might not work, or maybe every time you feel that
Oh,
giving up?
anytime,
Mm. Uh,
every night before I go to sleep, it always comes to your mind. There's something like when you work on things
mm,
as an engineer, you know about every small thing that can go wrong, and there are thousands. Mostly none of those go wrong, but some of them do. So more you think about it, more you can predict that if something goes wrong, that it can go wrong, and then you also your brain automatically has to think about what you would do if this went wrong.
mm,
So just because part of your brain always is on it, when something actually goes wrong, you're like, oh, yeah, I thought about this. I
expected.
know how to solve this. I've even like looked for the solution on Amazon already, and I have links ready. I just have to go and buy it. So yeah, it always happens. You always think that something's not going to work, but everybody thinks about that. Every human person I have talked to ever in my life about anything
Mm,
always tells you that, oh, it's not going to work or it might not work.
mm,
So that's a natural thing. What is unnatural is to um, believe like crazy that you
mm.
still can make it work and just pursue that without just stopping. Okay,
Yeah,
that's the
makes
way to
sense.
battle that.
So I guess preparation and expecting things to fail is the secret sauce to finally fixing them when they fail.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is a very
Just
insightful.
uh, because you're expecting it, you don't go into depression when something breaks.
Yeah.
Because in 6 years ago, when we were starting this, every failure would cause us to like go home and cry. But when we woke up, we knew the solutions and we came back. But it took us a day at least to get over it. Now it's like a 10-second process. As soon as something fails, you can see on the faces of the team of, oh God, what I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna do. But in 10 seconds, you go like, oh yeah, I know what I'm gonna do, and that's it. You just go and do it.
This is cool. This is very useful insight. I'm sure uh, I learned a lot from this conversation. I'm sure our readers will as well. Uh,
Thank you.
so with that, Vamekh, I think that's the end of the interview. Thanks for joining us, and
Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed talking to you and getting to know Elvin and basically your journey.